To understand Ingmar Bergman's relationship with God, we must first understand his relationship with his father. Eric Bergman was born in 1886. He was a Lutheran minister and royal chaplain to the Swedish royal court. He was said to be incredibly strict with his son Ingmar, and so the young man who would become arguably Sweden's greatest director spent much of his youth rebelling against the church, this symbol of authority. His films reflect this attitude, the questioning of father figures and authority figures, including the most significant father and authority, God. In the early 60s, Bergman directed 3 films that allowed him to try and reconcile his feelings about the Creator. Often called the Silence of God Trilogy or Faith Trilogy, the 3 films have no official designation. In recent years, they have simply been marketed as the Bergman Trilogy. Through a Glass Darkly, the first of the 3 is austere and stripped down, unlike most of Bergman's more extravagant films the decade prior. It takes place on a small island over the course of about a day, featuring only 4 characters. Minas and Karin are the children of David. Martin is married to Karin. They spend a holiday together on the island, and their interpersonal relationships are crushed under the weight of the distance the father has put between himself and his children. Minas laments that his father never speaks to him, never cares for him. In this, we see Bergman lashing out against his father, but we also see him lashing out against God, the Heavenly Father who places untold distance between us. In this scene, after presenting his children with thoughtless gifts, he sobs and stretches his arms out, creating a silhouette of a crucifix. At the end of the film, David actually speaks to Minas, and the son is overjoyed at the mere fact that the father noticed him. In spite of the crucifix silhouette, for David, Minas is meant to more closely resemble Jesus Christ. Bergman's own notes on the film confirm this. God is both dark and light. Sometimes he gives incomprehensible instructions to drink salt water, kill animals, and so on. But sometimes he is full of love and gives her vital experiences, even on the sexual plane. He descends and disguises himself as Minas, her younger brother. His question to David is much like Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, wondering why his father has forsaken him. But David is abusive and cruel. He charts his daughter's mental illness as a basis for a novel, hiding this fact from her. Karin has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. David and Martin believe she is incurable. Karin stares at the wallpaper and at the closet, believing that God himself will soon appear. The subtext of these scenes being that expecting God to make an appearance is madness. To Bergman, what is happening is a form of revelation. God has come into this human being, Karin, and lets himself be known to her. She learns to love him, sacrifice for him, and finds herself forced into devotion. He leaves her empty and worn out. Karin remarks that God is a spider, a monster who wished to violate her. Minas asks David for proof of God. David only gives a pat answer, an all too simple answer, that the existence of love is proof enough of God. Minas finds this unsatisfying, as love can be explained without God. David remarks that instead, perhaps love simply is what we call God, and that can be enough. The title comes from a passage in the Holy Bible, specifically 1 Corinthians chapter 13. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. For the director, he interprets this as to mean we cannot see the truth of the world, or the truth of God. Winter Light is the second film in the trilogy, although the Swedish title does not translate to that at all. It translates roughly as The Communicants. Thomas Eriksson, a pastor, begins to doubt the existence of God. He trudges through his services, coldly giving wine to his parishioners as the organist yawns from the tedious ritual of it all. Mr. Persson confides in him that he is depressed about both his life and also the possibility of war. Persson commits suicide. Thomas, years after the death of his wife and now after this tragedy, falls into despair. Bergman, in a rare occurrence, showed the screenplay to his father. The main character, first named Thomas, meaning Doubting Thomas, last name Eriksson, meaning son of Eric Bergman, appears to convey that the disillusioned pastor represents the director's feelings. This is not speculation. Bergman's notes confirm that he is the pastor. I go into an empty church to converse with God and to finally fall to my knees, to pray openly, to talk to God, to get answers, to give up my resistance at last. In this film, the concept that love is proof of God is abandoned, directly connecting winter light to Through a Glass Darkly. Thomas no longer feels love. He is unable to love anyone else, and so love cannot be proof of God. It's also not much of a consolation to a man suffering from depression. In this scene, we are trapped. Bergman breaks the conventions of cinema and simply shows an uninterrupted 6 minutes or so of this woman. Thomas is reading a letter from her, and in it she states her opinion of Christianity. God and Jesus exist only as vague notions, and from the perspective of an outsider, it seems obscure and full of neurotic rituals that are overwrought with primitive emotions. People of faith do not want to consider such things, but in this scene, we are stuck with this woman's opinion. There is no escape. Bergman saw a kind of hypocrisy in the teachings of the church and the reality of its people of faith. His father would deliver beautiful sermons and then come home and lock young Ingmar in a cupboard. He was told that a monster that ate children's feet lived in the darkness. There is a scene in which Thomas tells Marta that his father pressured him into religion, mirroring the director's feelings about his father. As they speak, a train rolls by, and the wagons look like giant coffins. The subject of God as a spider is brought up again. Thomas says that every time he tries to witness God, he sees only the monster. This is another reference to the incongruity between the teachings of Christianity and the realities of the world. The good do not prosper, the evil are not punished. Only the vague hope that this will be rectified in an afterlife which has no proof of existing. Algot, someone who works with Thomas, is a kind of angel. He is unashamedly faithful and tries to give this faith to the pastor. In the end, there is a kind of stirring of a renewed faith, or at least an acceptance of what is, as Thomas leads the church in a prayer with only one person attending the service. He decides to perform his rituals because all people, including Christ in the garden, struggle with the silence of God. And that brings us to The Silence, the final film in the trilogy. Bergman has said that the silence of the title is that of God, but there is little in the film that directly ties to it. Instead, we see a brief experience of two women and a young boy as they arrive in a strange city and become anonymous in it. They have entered a meaningless existence in a fictional city set against the backdrop of a fictional war with no explanation. In the silence of God, some find life itself without meaning. The war is death. During the opening credits, we hear a ticking clock, a harbinger of death. Esther slowly dies over the course of the film. Esther is confined to her bed. Anna is confined to her responsibilities. But Johann is free because he is young. Death is so far from him. In the film, there are only two women, a mother and an aunt, who take care of Johann. The father is gone, meaning God is gone. God is dead, and this is who is left. The two women make do with what they have, and the boy does his best to assert his independence. He is being resigned to the end of faith. The Silence addresses theological issues far less explicitly than the previous two films, but that allows it greater room to spotlight modernity in general. It looks at life after belief, examining the ideology of secular institutions. The Silence has a double meaning. Lack of communication. The language of the silence was invented for the film. This language of a fictional country is loosely based on Estonian. Bergman once wrote, "These three films deal with reduction. Through a Glass Darkly conquered certainty. Winter Light penetrated certainty. The Silence, God's silence, the negative imprint. Therefore they constitute a trilogy." In these films, we see the struggle to reconcile opposing forces, the teachings of the Church with the realities of its practices, hope for mankind and a history that casts a shadow on that hope, the plea to God with an answer that is only silence, an endless search with no conclusions. Hi everyone, if you like what I do, please click on the orange Patreon link below. That's how this show happens. It's also the only way to request an episode. Also, there are other benefits to pledging, so check it out. The information is on my Patreon page. I'll see you next week.